I don't need money, only shelter. His answer changed her forever. The wooden cabin huddled against the blizzard, its flickering oil lamp casting shadows that danced across the rough-hewn walls and worn wooden floor. Outside, the wind howled, and the snow pounded against the eaves, making the world beyond feel colder and more desolate than ever. Jack McCall, the quiet cowboy, tended the fire in the hearth. Sparks leapt into the air, radiating warmth and casting a golden glow on his stern yet gentle face. His hands moved deftly, placing a pot of boiling water on the stove and pouring tea into the old ceramic cups, the aroma mingling with the scent of burning wood. Eliza Moore, the girl left alone in the storm, huddled in her chair. Her eyes trembled, but curiosity and relief began to stir as she watched Jack. He placed a simple loaf of bread before her, and with each sip of the hot tea, a peculiar warmth filled the space between them, a moment of comfort amidst the harsh, unforgiving West. It wasn't just a meal. It was a coat for her heart, a sense of safety she had never known. Amid the glow of the fire and the whistle of the wind outside, Jack's presence made her realize that even in the merciless West, there were people willing to be a shelter for a vulnerable heart. And in that instant, as two lonely souls met each other's gaze across the flickering flames, their fateful story began not through grand promises, but through small, simple acts of meaning. A cup of warm tea, a loaf of bread, and the quiet, steadfast presence of someone who wanted to protect another. Part 1. A Fateful Encounter. Heavy snow blanketed the empty train station. The wooden planks of the old platform creaked under the biting wind, and not a single soul was in sight except Eliza Moore, shivering, clutching her small suitcase tightly. She turned to watch the tracks where the train had just left its whistle, fading into the white storm. A hollow, lonely feeling filled her chest, as if the whole world had abandoned her in the middle of the blizzard. She exhaled the cold breath, mingling with the icy air brushing against her purple lips. Her eyes blurred from the wind, yet deep within them, a fragile glimmer of hope remained. Surely, someone will come. Right. Footsteps echoed on the thick snow, but Eliza didn't dare look afraid. It was only her imagination, a fleeting illusion born of desperation. Suddenly, a figure emerged through the veil of snow. A wide-brimmed hat, a thick leather coat, a scarf covering most of his face, but the strength and steadiness in his presence were unmistakable. His black Mustang stood quietly, steam from its breath, rising in the cold air. Jack McCall had arrived. Jack did not hurry. He stopped a few paces from Eliza, calm eyes observing every detail. "Ma'am, you'll freeze," he said, his voice deep, warm, and certain. The wind howled through the wooden beams and along the tracks, emphasizing the danger around them, but his voice carried an odd reassurance. Eliza faced him, trembling, part fear, part curiosity. "Why? Why help me?" She stammered, her voice hoarse from the cold and fear. He lifted the corner of his mouth but did not smile. His words were deliberate, soaked in experience. "'Cause someone should have helped me once." The sentence was more than an answer. It was an invisible bridge, connecting two lonely hearts in the harsh West. Around them, the blizzard raged, yet in that moment, Eliza felt warmth radiate from the man before her. Jack knelt, spreading his heavy coat. "Crawl in here," he instructed softly. just enough for her to understand that he meant to protect her. She lowered her head and stepped into the warmth, feeling the icy wind blocked from reaching her. Carefully, he lifted her onto the horse, each movement deliberate and protective. Eliza sat still, her head against his shoulder, and though her hands still trembled, she felt safe for the first time after so many days of abandonment. The horse moved slowly, each step crunching steadily through the snow like a gentle heartbeat. Jack said nothing, yet his eyes never left her, guiding each step, every movement over the snowy path. Though still frightened, warmth began to kindle in Eliza's gaze, hope creeping through the layers of snow beyond the cabin window. When they reached a nearby wooden cabin, Jack set her down on a chair and quickly draped a blanket around her. The firelight flickered across his strong yet gentle face, letting her feel that the protection came not only from his body, but also from his heart. The scent of burning wood mingled with the aroma of hot tea, and she inhaled deeply, savoring the rare moment of peace. She looked at Jack, unable to speak, simply absorbing the safety he provided. Jack turned to the stove, sipped his tea, then poured more into her cup. No grand words, no bold promises, just simple quiet acts that eased the sting of abandonment. A plain loaf of bread sat before her, warmth rising from it, mingling with the scent of tea. Eliza slowly bit into the bread warmth, spreading from the outside in, as if the harsh cold of the western blizzard could touch her no more. She felt a new belief awaken that even in the Wild West, there were people willing to shelter fragile hearts. Jack sat opposite her, his gaze soft, observing her with care, but never intruding. "Storm's nasty," he said gently, a reminder that danger still lingered outside. Yet within this cabin, she was protected. In that warm moment, Eliza realized that fate had brought her here not through words or grandeur, but through quiet salvaging acts: a cup of tea, a loaf of bread, and the presence of a man who valued kindness. Their fateful story began then. The blizzard still howled outside, but inside the cabin, two lonely souls found their first connection, a small glimmer of hope in the harsh West. Curiosity, hope, and Eliza's unhealed pain began to melt away, making room for a new journey. A journey where salvation and love would slowly unfold. And in that instant, amidst flickering firelight and the whistling wind outside, the initial tragedy transformed into a chance for rescue. Eliza lifted her gaze to Jack's eyes, glimmering with a hope she had never felt before. She knew that from this moment, her life would no longer be alone. Part 2. The First Warmth. The small wooden cabin nestled in the snow-covered prairie glowed with the flickering fire in the hearth. Warmth spread through the air, mingling with the scent of burning wood and rising tea steam, creating a space entirely different from the raging blizzard outside. The soft golden light seeped through the cracks in the old wooden walls, dancing across the floor and casting long shadows over Jack McCall's face. Eliza Moore, the girl who had just endured the harsh snowstorm, huddled in an old chair, her hands clutching herself for warmth. Her eyes still sparkled with fear, but now curiosity and relief also glimmered within them. She watched Jack as he set a steaming cup of tea on the table before her. The warmth from the tea spread gently, the aroma filling the air, allowing her to take a deep breath without feeling the piercing cold. Jack sat across from her, calm yet gentle, observing every small gesture. He spoke little, but his presence alone made Eliza feel safe for the first time after so many lonely days. Carefully, he sliced a simple loaf of bread and placed it before her. He sipped his hot tea and exhaled slowly, as if sharing not just food, but the warmth of himself. "Here, eat slowly," he said, his voice low, warm, and tender. No other words, just a simple act of care enough for her to feel his sincerity. Eliza nodded slightly and bit slowly into the bread, feeling warmth spreading from her hands, from the cup of tea down to her cold toes. For the first time in days, she felt her body and heart gently healed. Outside, the storm still howled snow, blanketing everything, but inside, the crackle of the fire and the soft clink of the teacups created a steady, soothing rhythm. Every sound, every warmth from the hearth reminded Eliza that she was no longer alone. Jack watched her eyes, occasionally tracing her small movements, the way she held the teacup, the way she watched the dancing flames. He understood that this peace and warmth meant more to her than any grand promise. Sometimes, a gentle gesture, a small act was enough to let a fragile heart know someone cared. Someone was there to protect it. Warmth, the sound of the fire, the scent of smoke and tea all blended together, creating a healing space. Eliza breathed softly, resting her head against Jack's shoulder for a brief moment, feeling the stability and reassurance he offered. No words were needed. Jack's gaze alone conveyed safety, a sensation she had never known in this wild, cold West. He quietly tended the fire, adding logs with practiced hands so the flames continued to glow, casting warmth across the room. Jack said nothing of the past, nothing of anything grand. He simply existed there, present, protecting and caring. These simple acts in Eliza's eyes were more precious than any flowery words. She began to share small stories of her long train journey, the biting cold, the fear of being left alone in the snow. Jack listened intently, eyes focused, not interrupting, not judging. He nodded gently occasionally, whispering a small reassurance. "It's all right. You're safe now." Each soft word pressed against her heart, soothing the wounds she carried from the past. The crackle of the fire, the aroma of tea, and the warmth spreading through every gesture, these were the moments of healing. Eliza realized that salvation did not always come from grand deeds or heroic promises. Sometimes it came from small, simple, sincere acts, enough to make a vulnerable heart feel safe. Jack observed her quietly, his gaze reminding him of past losses, of times he had been left alone, of fragile hearts needing shelter. And in this moment, as two people in the harsh West found each other in the small cabin, it marked the beginning of a journey of healing hope and eventually love. The cabin grew even calmer. Eliza sipped her tea, inhaling deeply, the aroma and warmth filling her being. Her body and spirit softened, opening to trust. Every sound around the crackle of the fire, the wind whistling through the cracks, the soft clink of the tea in the cup felt like a gentle lullaby, lulling her into peace. The moment stretched seemingly endless, and in that stillness, Eliza understood that even in this harsh West, there were people willing to protect fragile hearts. Jack, with his steady hands and calm gaze, became a shelter for her, at least for tonight. She looked at him, saying nothing, yet her eyes shone with gratitude and trust. A faint smile curved her lips, her gaze soft, a sign of healing beginning from this first warm moment. This was not just a meal, a cup of tea, or a warm blanket. It was a gesture of kindness, of salvation, and a reminder that even lonely or wounded hearts could find warmth and hope in the Wild West. And in that moment, in the cabin's warm glow, the story of Jack McCall and Eliza Moore continued to unfold, beginning with gentleness, healing, and the light of hope amid the western blizzard. Two people, two souls, began to find each other in that small, emotion-filled space, setting the stage for a journey from rescue and hope to the love that would gradually reveal itself. Part 3. Revealing the Past. The small wooden cabin still held the warmth of the flickering fire in the hearth. Golden light spilled across the old walls, casting long shadows that danced with the rhythm of the flames. The scent of burning wood mingled with the aroma of tea and fresh bread, creating a cozy space almost entirely shielded from the blizzard outside. Eliza Moore sat curled in her chair, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her eyes fixed on the flames. Though her body had warmed, her heart had not yet fully healed from the losses and tragedies she had endured. The days spent abandoned in the snow, and the loneliness aboard the train still lingered vividly in her mind. Jack McCall sat across from her, calm, yet deep, watching her with gentle concern. He sipped his tea, the steam rising his breath, blending with the smoke in the cabin. After a moment of quiet, he began to speak, his voice low and deliberate, as if inviting Eliza into a part of his life few had ever seen. Years ago, I was left too, he said, eyes fixed on the fire. Lost my mom, my pa, everything I had. Thought I'd wander the plains alone for the rest of my days. Eliza listened, her chest tightening, hands gripping the blanket. She felt the quiet pain in his voice, the loss not only of material things, but of spirit, of faith in people. In the western blizzard, Jack's story intertwined with her own loneliness, forging an invisible connection that both could feel. She took a deep breath, eyes glistening, and spoke. I lost my husband last year. He never made it home from the railroad. Her voice was hoarse with emotion. I thought I'd never find a place to be safe again. Jack nodded gently, his gaze softening, yet he offered no empty words of comfort. He leaned slightly closer, placing his hand near the teacup as a gesture of empathy. Pain. It changes a person, he murmured, but it also teaches you to see the kindness when it comes along. Eliza looked at him, her eyes filled with sorrow, yet starting to spark with hope. For the first time, she encountered someone who did not judge, did not rush. He simply listened, understood, and empathized. Jack's presence, the way he shared his own losses, made her feel that she was not alone, and that the wounds in her heart could be healed little by little. The fire burned brighter, golden light, highlighting their faces, emphasizing every line, every expression. Jack spoke of the lonely days he spent herding cattle across the cold plains, of nights he listened to the wind whistling through the canyon and longed for home. Every tale, though simple, carried solitude and resilience. Eliza responded with her own stories of caring for orphan children, the fear of being abandoned on the train, the promises life seemed to forget. Every word, every shared moment underscored that both had endured profound loss, and now amid the harsh West, they found understanding in each other. The crackle of the fire, the rising scent of tea, the warmth spreading through every gesture, this was healing. Eliza gradually loosened her hands, her gaze softening. She realized that Jack was not just the man who saved her from the blizzard, but also the one who offered understanding, a place for her heart to feel empathy and safety. Jack exhaled, eyes sweeping the space before him, as if reminding himself of the responsibility he carried to protect the vulnerable, share the pain, and provide shelter in the Wild West. He made no grand promises, offered no ornate words. By listening and sharing, he became the first refuge for this lonely girl's heart. The moment stretched, yet it was never dull. It became a bridge between past pain and present warmth, between loneliness and trust. Eliza began to sense safety, closeness, and the hope that her life might begin anew from this point. In the cabin, the firelight reflected in their eyes, revealing their pains and losses, but also understanding and shared empathy. This profound connection formed the foundation of the relationship taking root, not through bold words, but through quiet acts and presence. Eliza exhaled, relieved. For the first time in many days, she felt seen, understood, and accepted. Jack, sitting opposite, calm yet certain, knew this moment healed not only her, but himself, tending to the scars he carried from the past. And in the cabin's warm glow, their story continued to unfold, beginning with sharing empathy and acknowledged losses. The first moment of healing had taken shape, laying the foundation for a journey from tragedy to hope and eventually love in the harsh West. Part 4. Threats from the town. The cabin door closed behind them, but the warmth inside could not mask the anxieties looming outside. The blizzard had eased, yet Jack McCall knew the real challenge was far from over, and it no longer lay in the cold or snow, but right in the heart of the small town where law and prejudice stood like invisible walls. The town appeared before them, hazy under the pale afternoon light. Ancient wooden storefronts stood silent, a thin layer of snow covering the eaves and windows, reflecting the dim golden glow of street lamps. The air was still yet heavy, as if every brick and timber absorbed rigid rules waiting for a reason to assert control and punishment. Sheriff Thompson appeared in front of the cabin, his boots echoing on the cold wooden porch. Long coat, wide-brimmed hat, a silver badge glinting in the fading light. His eyes were stern, watching Jack and Eliza as if every gesture of theirs would be judged. He paused, hand gripping the gun at his hip, voice carrying authority. McCall. Heard there's a stranger in town, and rules must be followed. Eliza shrank into the corner of the cabin, heart-racing hands clutching the blanket. The warmth inside was still there, but it could not dispel the creeping tension. She had never faced authority or rigid rules like this, and the helplessness made her tremble. Jack stepped forward, calm yet firm. "She's just passing through, Sheriff." "No harm done," he said, his voice low and steady. Each word seemed to ease the tension, yet simultaneously challenge the strictness of the law. Sheriff Thompson exhaled sharply, studying Jack from head to toe, then resting on Eliza's gaze. "Rules are rules," he emphasized, his voice sharp as a blade, "and strangers must answer to them." The air grew heavy. The wind occasionally whispered through the cracks, making every sound inside the cabin echo, oddly accentuating the seriousness of the moment. Eliza remained silent, but a spark of determination ignited in her eyes. She recalled every moment she had protected herself on the train amidst the blizzard when no one stood by her. This moment, though intimidating, reminded her she was not entirely powerless. Though frightened, she had Jack by her side, and with him, she felt ready to face this challenge. Jack placed a reassuring yet firm hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, I'll handle this," he said, his deep, warm voice resolute. Every gesture, from standing between her and the sheriff to the steady way he watched each move to resting his hand on the gun, radiated protective security. Sheriff Thompson stepped closer, eyes probing each footfall on the wooden floor, echoing like a tense heartbeat. This town has its rules, and strangers, especially women alone, must comply. He warned, his gaze cold, asserting absolute authority. Eliza felt her pulse quicken, not out of pure fear, but aware that a challenge had arrived. Anxiety blended with a quiet tension, a feeling of being captivated by the situation, yet not hopeless. This was the moment to learn to rely on another, and at the same time, to rely on herself. Jack inhaled calmly, eyes never leaving the sheriff. "She stays. No harm done. And you'll find no trouble from us," he said, his voice steady, carrying authority. Every word underscored that kindness and fairness could not be suppressed by rigid rules. Sheriff Thompson paused, nodded slightly, yet his gaze remained stern. He turned, walking across the snow-covered ground outside the cabin, leaving a peculiar silence behind. Eliza felt her breath steady again, and for the first time, the anxiety gave way to relief. That tense moment became an experience that drew her and Jack closer. They had faced the law, authority, and prejudice, but each other's presence, Jack's quiet protection, created a rare sense of safety in the Wild West. Eliza sat down, hands clutching the blanket, silently thanking Jack. No words were necessary. A glance and steady presence were enough to show her that no matter how harsh the West might be, there were those willing to protect vulnerable hearts. Jack returned to the hearth, eyes on the flames, contemplating the challenges ahead. Yet this time, he knew they had crossed the first step toward facing the harsh world outside, and together, building safety, warmth, and trust. The storm outside had subsided, but the tension from the town lingered. However, with Jack's calm yet determined gaze and the flicker of resolve igniting in Eliza, that moment of anxiety became the foundation for the steps ahead, steps that would carry them from challenge to deep empathy, and ultimately to trust and the love that would slowly emerge. Part 5. The decision to protect. The blizzard outside the cabin had eased, but the wind still whistled through the cracks, creeping into the small homestead. The landscape lay silent, blanketed in white, yet the air carried a subtle tension. Every tree, every fence post seemed to breathe with solemnity, reminding Jack that the true challenge no longer lay in nature, but in the town's rules and watchful eyes. Jack McCall stood tall in front of the cabin, calm but resolute. Eliza Moore stood behind him, the blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her eyes shimmering with worry, yet gradually showing trust. This was the moment Jack had to decide: would he leave the vulnerable girl to face the town's strict rules alone, or would he step forward to protect her, regardless of the risks? Sheriff Thompson and a few townsfolk had gathered outside, eyes cautious and scrutinizing. Rules exist for a reason, McCall the sheriff said cold and sharp. You can't just flout them because someone's heart is soft. Jack did not back down. He placed a hand on the saddle, not drawing his weapon, merely showing the sheriff that he was ready to defend what mattered. His voice was deep and firm. I'm not here to flout the law, but she stays. And she stays under my protection. At that moment, the light from the cabin reflected across Jack's face, highlighting his stern features without erasing the gentleness within. Every gesture standing firm at the doorway, his calm gaze measured. Breathing spoke of the belief that honor and goodness mattered more than any rigid rule. Eliza stood behind him, taking a deep breath. Her heart raced anxious, yet feeling the strength and security Jack provided. She realized that in the Wild West, where blizzards and harsh rules existed side by side, a person of honor and kindness could make all the difference. Sheriff Thompson frowned, eyes scanning the townsfolk. They were silent, but in their gaze, Jack saw doubt, prejudice, and curiosity. He knew his actions today not only protected Eliza, but sent a message in the harsh West goodness honor and hope still existed. Jack stepped out of the cabin doorway, bathed in its warm golden light, presenting a steadfast figure, the protector after the storm. She's under my protection. No one will harm her. He added, his voice clear for all to hear, but not threatening. This moment was not just words. It was action. Jack rested a hand on Eliza's shoulder as she stepped out with him. Their eyes met, speaking without words. She was safe. He would protect her, and honor would be upheld. The townsfolk, though wary, dared not challenge them. Sheriff Thompson exhaled, gripping his gun, before turning away, acknowledging that rigid law must yield to kindness and honor. Eliza felt her heartbeat slow, tension dissolving, giving way to hope. She looked at Jack, eyes full of gratitude and trust. Simple gestures, his hand on the saddle, his steady gaze had given her a sense of safety she had never known. Jack returned to the cabin, preparing a quiet evening for them both. The fire flickered in the hearth, the scent of smoke and hot tea filling the air, bringing warmth and healing. They sat together, words unnecessary, yet in that silence, all the town's worries and challenges seemed soothed. This moment proved that in the harsh West, goodness, hope, and honor still existed. One person could stand to protect vulnerable hearts, creating shelter not only with body, but with presence, trust, and quiet, unwavering action. Eliza looked at Jack, feeling her heart warm. This was more than rescue. It was the moment she realized that safety, hope, and love could begin from simple yet sincere actions. And in the warm glow of the cabin and the snow-covered homestead beyond, they both knew that the journey from tragedy through rescue to love had truly begun. Jack stood by the window eyes on the snow-covered fields, closing them briefly to exhale the tension of the day. He felt the peace radiating from Eliza, from the small cabin, from the protective act he had just carried out. This was the moment he upheld honor, protected the vulnerable, and sowed hope in the Wild West. They had passed the town's first test, and this moment marked a turning point from anxiety and subtle tension to hope and trust in the power of honor and kindness. Part 6. Building a Bond. Dawn broke over the dew-covered fields, pale golden light filtering through the mist, reflecting off each droplet lingering on the grass. The small homestead stretched before them, old wooden fences, the horse stables and a few tall pines standing proudly in the wild yet vibrant landscape. The fresh air, mixed with the scent of damp earth and grass, brought a sense of closeness and calm to the soul. Jack McCall stepped out of the cabin, gently tugging the reins of his horse. The black Mustang inhaled softly, shook its head, and began walking in steady steps. Eliza Moore stood beside him, her thin cloak replaced with a warm jacket, gloves on her hands, eyes bright with curiosity and excitement. This was the first morning she ventured into the open fields with Jack, leaving the cabin behind to immerse herself in the rhythm of farm life, a new and intimate experience. Jack began teaching her how to care for the young calves in the pen. Step by step, he gently showed her how to check their health, feed them, and move them without causing fear. Eliza observed her hands clumsy but eager, every careful movement tinged with excitement. He was patient, never judgmental, simply standing beside her, correcting details with a calm, encouraging gaze. Easy. Let them see your hand first. Jack instructed, his voice deep and warm. Eliza followed, extending her hand slowly, and the little calf tilted its head, sniffing her fingers. A small smile appeared on her lips, the first feeling of confidence and connection with the living creatures around her. Jack watched, eyes reflecting quiet joy, a subtle reward for effort and closeness. Later, they repaired a broken section of fence together, passing each plank, hammering and tightening screws. Each movement coordinated naturally, without many words, yet their glances, smiles, and gestures conveyed trust and understanding. When Jack handed her a hammer, Eliza took it, and a gentle moment passed, the sound of hammer striking wood. Her soft laugh and distant birdsong mingled with the wind. All tension and worry seemed to vanish in this shared closeness. Jack led Eliza to the pasture where other horses grazed. He showed her how to soothe them, how to let them feel human reassurance. She placed her hand on a horse's mane, meeting its gaze, realizing that trust and patience were key to connection. Jack stood beside her hands, lightly resting on the saddle, watching but never imposing, giving her confidence and comfort. At midday, they sat on a large rock overlooking the sunlit fields. Jack pulled a loaf of bread from his bag, dividing it in two, placing it in front of Eliza, along with a bit of cheese. They ate in silence, yet the moment was far from dull. The only sounds were the wind through the fields, the songs of birds, and the steady breathing of two people learning to trust and share. Eliza smiled softly, eyes warm as she looked at Jack. "I never thought work on a farm could feel this comforting," she said, voice low, but filled with warmth. Jack nodded, slightly smiling. "It's the rhythm, the routine, makes life simpler and somehow safer." This moment was not just closeness to nature, but closeness between two people. Every action, from passing tools, sharing food, to working together, built a foundation of trust and emotion. Eliza realized that Jack was not only the one who had protected her from blizzards or strict laws, but also a companion, a source of understanding in ordinary, simple, yet sincere moments. After lunch, they returned the horses to the stables, guiding each one, carefully checking their health step by step. The afternoon sunlight filtered across the fields, highlighting their smiles, the glances exchanged conveying mutual trust. Eliza felt herself gradually opening up. This closeness was a bridge toward deeper feelings. Jack looked at her eyes full of encouragement. "You're doing well," he said, warm and affirming, not judging, merely acknowledging effort. Eliza nodded her gaze, shining with enthusiasm and confidence, realizing that his companionship was not just protection, but encouragement. As the day progressed, sunlight cast pale golden patches across the fields and snow. Jack and Eliza stood together, observing their completed work, feeling the slow yet meaningful rhythm of life. This moment proved that closeness, trust, and sharing simple joys laid the foundation for the bond blossoming between them. On the peaceful homestead, amidst the wide fields, Jack and Eliza learned to understand each other, share work, and gradually build trust. No elaborate words were needed. Their presence, companionship, and small, sincere gestures slowly transformed the bond from initial rescue into genuine connection. Eliza exhaled softly, smiling as she looked at Jack, eyes filled with trust and gratitude. Jack returned the smile, gaze steady yet warm. Two people standing in the harsh west, amidst snow-covered fields and vast meadows, had discovered closeness and trust, stepping forward together into a new journey. A journey leading to empathy, hope, and the love that was beginning to bloom. Part 7. Recognizing Kindness. The western town began a quiet morning. Pale golden sunlight glinting off the old wooden rooftops, lingering mist from the night still clinging to them. The soft clop of horse hooves echoed, the wind whispered through narrow alleyways, and shop doors opened to welcome customers. The air seemed ordinary at first, yet gradually the townspeople's eyes began following Jack McCall and Eliza Moore, two people bringing a new breeze, a quiet message of kindness and honor. Jack and Eliza stepped out of the cabin, ready for the day's work on the farm. They led the horses along the snow-covered path, eyes attentive to every step, every small action. At first, the townsfolk watched with curiosity, but soon they began to notice the simple yet precious deeds. Jack carefully tending the horses, helping Eliza lead the cattle, sharing food with the orphan children wandering the town. One morning, old Mr. Curtis, once stern and difficult, stood by the saloon porch scrutinizing. He watched Jack assist a child gathering firewood, offering a piece of bread, and guiding a young calf safely without letting it stray into the fields. His brow furrowed slightly, then softened. A part of him began to sense Jack's quiet sincerity and unassuming goodness. Little Lily, standing beside her mother, ran to Jack's hands, touching the saddle eyes, innocent yet full of joy. Jack bent down, smiling gently, patting her shoulder, then handing her a small piece of bread. The act not only made the child beam, but spread warmth to those who witnessed it. Skeptical and cautious onlookers began realizing that kindness and honor were more valuable than any rigid law. The town had long been accustomed to strict rules, where suspicion and prejudice coexisted with daily life. But Jack's small acts, from helping Eliza tending animals to sharing food with orphans, slowly shifted perceptions. Observant eyes softened, whispered doubts gave way to quiet admiration. One afternoon, while Jack repaired a broken fence near the main road, Sheriff Thompson passed by. This time, his gaze was no longer sharp. Instead, it carried a quiet acceptance. He nodded slightly, acknowledging that Jack McCall not only followed the law, but lived by honor and kindness, a standard few in the town dared to challenge. Eliza stood beside him, looking at Jack with gratitude. She realized that the townspeople's silent support not only brought reassurance, but also convinced her that good deeds are always noticed, even if not publicly recognized or celebrated. As farm work continued, townsfolk began seeking Jack's guidance, requesting small favors, or merely witnessing his simple yet powerful acts of kindness. Each time Jack offered a helping hand or a gentle word, he not only brought joy to the recipient, but planted trust and hope in everyone around him. Those who had once doubted or hesitated began to change. They realized that Jack McCall was not a solitary man, only looking after himself, but a man who lived by principle, protecting vulnerable hearts, upholding honor, and practicing kindness quietly yet steadfastly. Eliza held Jack's hand, eyes brimming with trust and warmth. Words or grand gestures were unnecessary. Everything was shown through their way of living, through quiet, sincere care. Empathy spread throughout the town, and for the first time the people understood that kindness and honor were not just ideals. They were tangible, capable of touching every life. As evening approached, the fading sunlight cast long shadows across the wooden rooftops and fields. Jack and Eliza stood at the farm, looking toward the town, feeling the calm rhythm created by small, meaningful gestures. They had overcome the town's initial doubts and challenges, and now Jack's kindness was recognized, fostering empathy and a sense of justice, not just for Eliza, but for the entire small community. This moment was proof that in the harsh West, where blizzards and prejudice coexisted, kindness, honor, and empathy could prevail. Every small act, every gentle gesture could sow hope and bring change to hearts. Eliza leaned against Jack, feeling his warmth and steadfastness. She knew that not only had she found safety, but the town was gradually learning the value of kindness. Curious glances and whispered doubts had transformed into compassionate eyes and approving smiles. Jack looked at Eliza, gaze firm yet tender, and she sensed that justice did not always come from law or authority, but from honorable and kind actions. Together, standing between the snowy farm and the small town, they became living symbols of goodness, a reminder that in the Wild West, humanity endures, and every sincere act is seen. As night fell, street lights cast their glow through the windows, reflecting on the lingering snow, creating a scene both peaceful and full of feeling. Jack McCall's kindness had been acknowledged, and empathy within the town began to take root, paving the way for the next steps in his and Eliza's journey, from deep compassion to love and a shared peaceful home. Part 8. Love Blossoms. The sun set over the sprawling fields, gentle amber light falling on each blade of grass, every patch of snow left from the morning. The landscape was painted in warm, soft hues, as if the entire West had paused to witness a special moment between two people. The final songs of birds echoed a light breeze, brushed past, carrying the scent of damp grass and earth, creating a tender soundtrack for the growing feelings between them. Jack McCall and Eliza Moore walked slowly across the meadow, eyes following each other's gestures, their gazes soft and curious. The past days, from the snowstorm at the train station to their work together on the farm, had brought them closer, forging a deep bond that had overcome tragedy and challenge. Eliza stopped looking at Jack, her eyes glimmering in the sunset light. I never thought I'd feel this. Calm, she said, voice trembling, but warm, a mix of wonder and happiness. Her gaze, gentle yet full of trust, held Jack's attention completely. He smiled, stepped closer, and took her hand. It's because we're here. Together, he replied, voice low and warm, filled with emotion. The simple gesture a hand placed in hers gave Eliza a sense of safety and peace, letting her feel love growing slowly but surely. They reached a small hill where the sunset reflected on the snow and grass, forming a golden-orange halo around them. Jack gently touched Eliza's face, his hand trembling slightly from emotion, yet steady in love and protection. She looked at him, eyes shining, heart racing, not from fear, but from happiness and complete trust. They sat on a large rock, overlooking the fields, and the small farm bathed in sunset light. Jack took a thin scarf, draping it around her shoulders against the light breeze, a simple yet warm and romantic gesture. She leaned into him, eyes closed, breathing in the scent of earth grass and the warmth radiating from him. All tension and worry from the past and from the small town faded, leaving only healing and peace. Jack and Eliza spoke softly, sharing quiet thoughts, small joys from farm life. Every word, every smile, every glance layered another level onto their growing affection. Eliza spoke of her first days in the West, the loneliness and fear that had once filled her heart. Jack listened, with gentle eyes occasionally smiling, then shared stories of nights spent alone guarding the farm, missing home, but finding joy in simple things. This moment needed no grandeur, no sweeping promises. Mere eye contact, smiles, and their genuine presence were enough for their hearts to recognize love. Eliza smiled softly, looking at Jack, feeling healing from his touch and gaze. Their love blossomed naturally, gently, yet intensely, like the sunset gradually painting the meadow in vibrant gold. Jack looked into her eyes, voice low and warm. I've waited a long time to find someone who understands. The words were brief but meaningful. Eliza placed her hand on his chest, feeling the steady, strong beat of his heart, the rhythm of trust and love forming. In that moment, on the sunset-lit meadow, they realized they had found each other, not only rescue, but companionship, love, and a home for their hearts. They sat together, watching the sunset reflect on snow and grass, hands intertwined. Words were unnecessary. They simply felt each other's warmth, gaze, and heartbeat. Every passing minute affirmed that the harsh West could make people lonely. But here, amidst the wild landscape and challenges, love could bloom and heal long-held wounds. As the sun sank lower, the light fading, Jack gently brushed Eliza's hair, a small yet tender gesture. She leaned against him, feeling his warmth and steadiness. The days of snowstorms, trials, and tension from the town had become the foundation for a love that was sincere, strong, yet gentle. That sunset was not just a beautiful natural scene. It symbolized love blossoming. Eliza and Jack, once lonely souls, had found empathy, healing, and trust in each other. They knew that from this point forward, no matter how harsh the West, they would face it, together protect one another, and let love guide every new day. Night fell, the light fading, yet their hearts shone bright like the sunset, full of love and hope. This romantic healing moment marked the maturity of their relationship, from initial rescue and empathy to true love. On this sunset-drenched meadow, Jack McCall and Eliza Moore's story entered its most beautiful stage, blossoming, growing, and filled with hope. Part 9. A Home Takes Shape. The early morning sky cast golden light over the small wooden cabin, dew still clinging to the roof and farm fences. The air was fresh, carrying the lingering scent of burning wood from the hearth mixed with the damp aroma of melting snow on the fields. The farm seemed more alive than ever, birds singing, horses tapping their hooves on the ground, and the soft laughter of orphaned children from the town nearby. Jack McCall stepped out of the cabin, standing on the wooden steps, eyes sweeping across the farm with pride and contentment. Sunlight reflected off the black Mustang, casting a long shadow on the melting snow, reflecting warmth and peace. Beside him, Eliza Moore smiled, hands gloved and ready for a morning of activity. They were no longer two lonely souls. They had begun building a home, a shared life filled with hope. The day began with simple yet meaningful tasks. Jack and Eliza fed the horses together, led the cattle to the fields, checked fences, and repaired stables. Each action was coordinated naturally, requiring few words, creating a steady, peaceful rhythm. Their eyes met with trust, morning light illuminating their faces, highlighting joy and serenity in every moment. Orphan children from the town began appearing, shyly approaching to join in. Lily and Sam, two adorable children, carried small buckets, giggling as they watched Jack and Eliza work. They were taught how to care for animals, gather firewood, and experience farm life. Eliza guided them step by step, her gentle gaze and constant smile making the children feel welcome and important. Jack stood nearby, helping the children lift water buckets, adjust reins, his gaze both serious and warm. The cooperation between Jack and Eliza not only brought efficiency to the work, but also sowed love and trust in the hearts of the children. Their laughter echoed across the farm, eyes sparkling with joy, making the space vibrant and filled with happiness. Later, they prepared a simple lunch: bread, cheese, a few slices of smoked meat. Eliza picked remaining greens from the garden, while Jack grilled the meat over coals. Each action was simple, yet full of care and sharing. When they sat down to eat, the orphans gathered around. Laughter rang across the fields, creating a warm scene brimming with love and joy. In the afternoon, Jack and Eliza led the children into the pastures, teaching them how to ride horses, care for calves, and handle the reins. They laughed, instructed, and explored the surrounding nature together. Every smile, every shared glance was proof of a home-taking shape, a place where love, kindness, and care spread to all. As the sunset began to bathe the farm in golden light, Jack and Eliza stood side by side, watching the children run, horses grazing, and the sky ablaze in the distance. They felt the peace radiating from every small gesture, a hand helping a child lift a bucket. A smile shared a glance of encouragement. Eliza leaned against Jack, feeling his warmth and steady protection. He responded with a gentle embrace, eyes soft yet determined. In this golden light and peaceful setting, it was clear they had built a home not just for themselves, but for the vulnerable hearts around them. A gentle breeze carried the scent of damp earth, mingling with laughter and birdsong, forming a tender soundtrack for a western afternoon. Every sound, every warmth, every light contributed to this moment of serenity where love, joy, and healing converged. Eliza looked at Jack, eyes filled with trust and happiness. "I feel at home here," she said, voice low but warm. Jack held her hand, smiling. "This is our home. We make it together." Simple words, yet full of faith, hope, and the peace they had built together. As evening fell, the cabin's warm light spilled onto the snow and wooden fences, highlighting the tranquil, joyful scene. The orphan children returned to bid farewell, eyes sparkling with gratitude and joy. They had become part of this home, a place where love, kindness, and care radiated to everyone. This moment proved that even in the harsh West, where blizzards and challenges coexist, joy and peace can be created through love, kindness, and mutual care. Jack and Eliza, together with the orphaned children, had built a home, a safe, warm, and happy place where every heart could be healed. Night descended the cabin's golden light, blending with the soft glow of the moon, reflecting on the snow and fields. Jack and Eliza sat on the steps hand in hand, gazing at the peaceful farm, feeling connection, joy, and serenity in every breath. This was the moment their home truly took shape, marking the culmination of their journey from rescue to love to a life of peace and happiness. Part 10. An open ending, full of hope. The first sunrise of a new day bathed the vast fields in pale golden light, where the small farm of Jack McCall and Eliza Moore lay in the wild western landscape. The first rays of sun pierced through the morning mist, shining on the cabin roof and reflecting off the remaining snow, creating a scene full of light and hope. The air was fresh and still filled only with birdsong, the rustle of leaves, and the cheerful laughter of children running around the farm. Jack stood beside Eliza on a small hill, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun had just risen. They were silent words, unnecessary, letting the morning light and the peaceful expanse of the fields convey the message they both felt everything was all right, and the future ahead was full of promise. The orphaned children, now part of this home, ran and played nearby, their laughter echoing across the fields. Lily and Sam held hands, climbed on the fence, shouting with delight, eyes sparkling with happiness. Horses grazed. Cows wandered leisurely, blending into the tranquil scenery, bringing the western landscape to life, a place where people and nature harmonized peacefully. Eliza turned to Jack, eyes full of trust and love. "It feels like a new beginning," she whispered, her voice gentle and tinged with excitement. Jack smiled, gaze tender yet steadfast. "It is, and we'll face it together." They exchanged a look full of understanding, a silent promise that no matter the challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them side by side. The surroundings grew even more vivid. Sunrise light fell on the wooden homes, porches, fences, and rolling fields, casting a pale golden veil across the landscape. Morning mist rose, mingling with the sunlight, creating an ethereal yet peaceful scene. Birds sang, the wind whispered through the leaves, and the children's laughter blended together into a joyful, rhythmic, and hopeful melody. Jack led Eliza across the farm, checking the stables, feeding the cattle, and ensuring everything was ready for the new day. These ordinary yet meaningful actions reflected how they had built a shared life, a safe, loving home. Every gesture, from handing tools to resting a hand on a shoulder or guiding someone step by step, was a testament to their cooperation, trust, and growing love. Eliza watched the children run and play, eyes sparkling with joy. She realized that through Jack, through his patience, kindness, and love, she had found not only personal safety, but also created a space where other hearts could be happy and secure. A soft smile touched her lips as she looked at Jack with gentle gratitude. Jack gazed toward the horizon, brushing a lock of hair from the wind before looking back at Eliza. "This is just the beginning," he said. voice low and warm, filled with faith and hope. The sunrise illuminated his face, highlighting strong yet gentle features, and Eliza felt that with him by her side, she could face every journey ahead, no matter how difficult or challenging. They sat together on the cabin steps, overlooking the wide fields. Children played nearby, laughter, echoing birds, singing wind, whispering through the grass. Every sound, every sight reinforced a sense of peace and hope. This was a perfect moment, not just the end of a day or a challenge, but the culmination of a journey from loneliness and tragedy to rescue love, building a home, and renewed hope. Eliza leaned her head on Jack's shoulder, feeling his warmth radiate. Jack placed his hand over hers, squeezing gently, silently, conveying that no matter what tomorrow might bring, they would always be together. This moment, amidst the sunrise and vast fields, was the perfect blend of peace, joy, love, and hope. The surroundings remained alive sunlight on the cabin roof fences, grass and melting snow. Children's laughter, the soft breathing of horses, everything moved in harmony with their hearts. Jack and Eliza rose walking hand in hand along the fence, looking toward the wide open future. They felt freedom, peace, and hope in every breath step and exchanged glance. These moments, the sunrise and the open fields, became a symbol of their future, open, full of promise and overflowing with love. The children ran and laughed, a reminder that life goes on filled with joy and hope. Jack and Eliza smiled, understanding that all the hardships, tragedies, and trials they had endured had only led them to this beautiful moment, a hopeful, open ending, where everything was still unfolding, yet filled with peace and promise. They stood on the small hill, gazing over the farm and the fields bathed in morning light. Jack gently squeezed Eliza's hand, eyes tender yet certain. She smiled, leaning into him, feeling trust and hope filling her heart. This moment, amidst the vast western landscape and their little farm, was proof of the power of love, kindness, and faith in the future. This open ending leaves the audience with the sense that even in the harsh West, even with challenges ahead, everything can be overcome through love, kindness, and companionship. Jack McCall and Eliza Moore had found each other, built a home, and looked toward the future full of hope, a journey from tragedy to rescue, from empathy to love, and from challenge to peace. And as the first sunrise illuminated the endless fields, their story continued, opening infinite possibilities for the future, where hope, peace, and happiness endure, ready for the next chapters that life would bring.